I think the end goal of anything, unfortunately, not to like have a glib platitude, but it's like at the end of the day, you get to do the work. And like that's a really infuriating thing to hear, but it's all at the end of the day, it's about flow state and getting in it and what you learn at that process. It's not about the end result. And that sting. It's both the joy and the most frustrating part about anything.
Nosedive sounds like a downward plunge, but for us, it's an invitation to dive headfirst into the shit that scares us most. I'm Renee Adams, joined by my co-host and best friend of over a decade, Mara DeMaro. These are the stories from life beyond the status quo. We embrace the mess to numb less and live more. This is Nosedive. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Nosedive. This week we have the lovely Lauren McGurrin. Lauren is a Brooklyn-based private chef and food stylist. More recently, she is the founder and mad woman behind Mad Flora, a non-alcoholic Amaro. Lauren and I actually met at the To Be Magnetic book tour back in October, and she was a featured sponsor there, showcasing her delicious mocktail at the event. And I immediately thought to myself, okay, who is Lauren? What is Mad Flora? How did she get here? We must have her on Nosedive. So welcome to Nosedive, Lauren. We are so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I've really enjoyed listening to the podcast because when you got in touch, I said I have to be a follower. I have to know what's up.
Thank you. No, we sincerely appreciate that for sure. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about you. You know, I remember you saying like becoming a food stylist was actually kind of easier than you thought, and then how did that turn into making a non-alc brand?
To not give you my entire life story and condense it as much as possible, but I moved to New York in 2012 after college. Knew I wanted to cook, didn't know the details of that, and I wanted to be really good. And so over the first six years I was in New York, I did 3 high-profile restaurant openings in New York, cooked at the Michelin level, and eventually, as I'm sure your listeners can relate to, the lifestyle got to me. And I just knew I could not grow up and be an adult and also stay in restaurants. So I left restaurants, and the path kind of slowly opened up where some private chefing opportunities came up immediately. And it's also important to note that my ego could not just handle just leaving restaurants. I had to have a thing. So I was in graduate school for food studies at NYU very briefly. I ended up dropping out during the pandemic for financial reasons. But it made a lot of connections really fast. It was a really smart move at the time because I got involved with some production companies that said, I just reached out and they said, oh my God, no one ever reaches out. Do you want a job? So It kind of is that easy. Granted, I did have the background for it to really take off when the opportunity was presented. But so that's how I got my start. And then from there, just emailing food stylists in New York. It's easier than you'd think. I would look at pictures. I'd be like, wow, that looks really great. Find the name and get in touch with them. So that at this point, I've been a freelancer longer than I was in restaurants, which is kind of a crazy moment in my life, I guess, to look back and be like, oh, wow, I've been doing it myself for a very long time. Beyond that, Mad Flora, I was always excited to kind of move to the next thing. So Mad Flora has been something I've been very excited about for a very long time. I've been watching the non-alc space since I left restaurants in 2018. And I still don't think it really reflected for a very long time things that would actually be interesting for somebody in food and beverage. So I really wanted to be at the forefront of that and making something that tasted delicious first and foremost.
Yeah.
Well,
Gosh,
Lauren,
so many things.
Yeah, wait. I'm like, okay, because
where should we start?
I obviously didn't meet you at the TBM event, so this is my first time meeting you and hearing more about your story. Obviously, Renee told me about you, and I'm like, oh, sick, cool. I'm excited to dive in. But first of all, where are you from originally?
Really, it's not an interesting story. Not really anywhere. I tell people I'm from Vermont because I went to college there, but now I've lived in New York for 13 years, which is the longest I've lived anywhere.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And what about like you're talking about food stylists and like what is that? Like, I see in magazines like pictures of plated food, and I would imagine that is some of it, but not all of it. And so what does that mean and what does that look like? Yeah. What is that?
Great question. And it essentially does come down to that, like pictures in magazines a lot of the time. There's a few different subsets. So there's editorial, there's marketing, and then there's commercial marketing. So like video sets for film or television or commercial spots. So I largely I have experience in all those things, and it actually curtailed perfectly into kind of one of my favorite things about Flora, which is getting to do the photo shoots with my friends and just really build a creative arsenal of the biggest heavy hitters in product photography, formulation, different side. But so that's been a really exciting part of this journey for me. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of NDAs involved, but like fast food commercials are my favorite things to do, oddly enough, which
Oh
is
my
always kind of a
gosh.
surprise to people.
Yeah,
Love
why?
it.
Like what's the vibe? Why does it make it so fun?
So at some point you get bored of cooking. It's not something that making a meal, it's just not technically that interesting to me at this point. And so for some of these commercial spots, these people have been working for my entire life, figuring out how to make shrimp as pink as possible. Like these very you can get hyper specific and learn a skill that is actually not useful to a single other thing, but it's like a really fun, exciting day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, also, working. I also like recipe developers. Cookbooks are really fun too,
Mm.
for a lot of people. So,
Yeah. Kind of like set the foundation for what you're building with Mad Flora.
100%, totally.
Yeah. Dang. That's so interesting to me. So you talked and touched a little bit upon, you had like your comeuppance in Michelin star restaurants, you're in the restaurant scene, you're doing the damn thing there. What was kind of like the shift for you in, you mentioned like, okay, like I need to adult, I want to take my life to the next level, I want to do something different. Was there like a specific moment that you remember in your story where you're like, man, I've got to make a change. Like this lifestyle that I'm leading right now is just not really what I want. What did that look like?
I remember when I left, it was like Arabian Nights, or like I could have answered the question a different way every day and told a different story. Uh, so I think for a long time I started out and I was part of really exciting small projects, and I was one of the last salaried cooks in New York, which is an interesting line cook perspective. I don't think it's something that can be done anymore, and it was probably pretty close to illegal at the time. So the thing about that that's super interesting is the good and the bad news is you're there all the time. Like, so since you're not on an hourly thing, you get to do everything and see everything, but as a result, you know, you're
There's
not getting
nothing
paid any
else.
money.
Like you're not,
Yeah,
yeah, like you're not doing anything else. Oh my
totally. So
God.
I would say I was
Whoa.
in an equal amount of salaried and hourly positions in New York, which is pretty rare. That means you're working in really tight spaces. And that was really cool and exciting to me for a long time because I saw peers of mine dropping out and doing other things. And so I really thought for a long time I was going to make it, whatever that means. Make it was in retrospect, that was foolish of me because it was never my goal anyway. I just wanted to cook. I wanted to learn. I wanted to be really good. I don't think I ever had these Michelin ambitions. It just came to a certain point where it was like, okay, this is the natural next step. I do not have a personality for that to be successful. I think it was like very embarrassing for me to get at that level because also I, had been going out late for a really long time. I had been at, I think, the upper limit of what was socially acceptable from a substance abuse standpoint in retrospect for a very long time. So by the time I was 28, I really felt very washed up. And it was just clear it wasn't, not only was it not going to happen for me, I didn't want it to.
Mm,
There was a moment where somebody said, I got in a conflict with someone and they said, oh, use large words here and expect it to be taken seriously? Why can't you just say fuck you like everyone else? And I like really, I really, really had
Hmm.
like an existential crisis. Like I went home and I was like, I gotta go to grad school or something. Um, in retrospect, I think, sometimes things just have to you're going to learn your lesson either way. It would be cooler if you listened before things got nasty, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was time for it became clear it was time for me to go. And I think if I had known that there were any other options, because I actually didn't know food styling was a viable option at the time. And if I had known that there were other avenues, and in fact that most of the people down those avenues didn't have the experience I had accrued, I probably would have gotten out earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that that's like maybe a beacon of hope for some people who are listening, that like you just never know what you could maybe find in areas that you're talented at and that you really like, that you just don't even know exist. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's a
Yeah.
really good
Absolutely.
reminder.
Yeah, Renee and I talk about that all the time. We're like, we don't even know what to like search for, like when you're searching for a job, it's like, I know what I like to do and I know what my skills are and my talents and my passions. But when it comes to searching keywords and like what a title would be, I'm like, I don't fucking know, so it's really, I just think, I don't know. I just try to remain open to I might cross someone who says something about that I've never known, like for you, food styling. And it's like, oh shit. And that opens a whole nother avenue of opportunity. So yeah, don't lose hope, guys.
I know.
Totally. Totally. I think that, I mean, even prop styling, things like that. Like I was a prop master in high school at a tech, like for musicals and stuff. And who would have known that was an actual job? Had I known that as a high schooler, I think that would have been crazy for me.
Yeah, no idea. Like
Yeah.
I've never heard of any of those things. So it's so cool to me.
What about you were mentioning like you don't have the personality for like
Oh,
being in the restaurant realm for at that time anyway. What would you how would you describe like a personality to be able to fit in that space?
I think being very type A is really helpful. Like exceptionally type A. Really, you have to be a more organized person than I am, I think, to really succeed in those environments. I've kind of come to the conclusion at this point that people's best qualities are their worst qualities often. Like they're just so intertwined that it's hard to get away from that. And I've actually found being, my brother would call it type B plus, like more than B, has been like very, very helpful at this stage in my life, especially like I said, as I'm working with these collaborators and they say, "Oh my God, thank you so much for trusting me." And I'm like, do you know how easy it is to trust you? First off, you're a professional with this. If I could do it myself, I would. And thank God I can't do it myself because you would do such a better job. I'm delighted to give you the opportunity to just do your job and make something that you're really excited to stand on. And that's the opposite. Like, I think you have to have a really, really tight vision at that level to be successful.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, you mentioned too, I guess, 2018 or since 2018, you've been kind of following the non-alc space. What kind of brought you to that? Were you introduced to the space? Was it just something that you saw that was like missing in the food space? What kind of brought that about for you, and what kept you in the sort of atmosphere of like or maybe not even sober curiosity, but just like the non-alc space in general?
So I was taking breaks from drinking when I left restaurants, and I was just interested. I was doing a lot of reading, and I wanted to see what was out there. I think what is one of probably the first non-alcoholic bottle shops in the country was in my neighborhood at the time, which is Spirited Away. Those are
Okay.
still good
Yeah,
friends
yeah,
of
I've heard of
mine.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
it used to be on Ludlow Street. And so I was really excited to try a lot of the things. And while they were very good, um, they didn't really speak to me. So I was watching it for a long time. And I also do have a great deal of friends who do work in the beverage space, largely in alcohol. So my brother was a brewer for a very long time. Um, yeah, I knew a few other people who do sort of liquor based things. So I never felt quite qualified, but there was a moment where I said to myself, oh, there are rarely people more qualified than I am for this. And in fact, I think a big mantra of mine and Flora, when I'm asked on, a good day, is like, food products should be made by food people. And people kind of look at me funny. They're like, of course that's the case. No, it's almost never the case. Like it's often the money people who are making the food products, not the food people. So
Yeah.
it's really approaching it from that standpoint has been very interesting. I will also say that I went to a flavor conference a few years ago for Anheuser-Busch, and these people are, top of their field, clearly experts. And I asked the question, when does your expertise matter? And they said, oh, almost never. We always go with the market. And I think that sucks. I think that
Wow.
answer is
What?
terrible. I mean, it makes sense for them. There's a lot of money on the line. And if they can engineer a product to make the maximum profit, it doesn't matter if it's the best product. It's the one that makes the most money. But that's not, I think that's like music is made by consensus. Like when art's made by consensus like that, it sucks. So
Mhm.
I just think that I kind of was really lucky to find the right team to build this together. And I said, what if we got to do it differently? And they said, oh, thank God. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, huge
Please.
gaps. Oh
Yeah.
man, that's such a cool insight,
The
honestly.
integrity of it. Like, like, fuck. It pisses me
Yeah, the
off.
like yeah, yeah, right. The mass produced, it works for some people, sure, but just and that's something too that I've like really loved to see, not only about your product, tasting your product too, but just the time and detail and the curation that actually goes into things like what you're building. You just have a different appreciation for it. And more people are going to I think entertain the non-alc space when it is something that's thoughtful.
A huge compliment of mine is when people who aren't interested in the non-alcoholic space at all, just kind of, granted, they're biased by the fact that they know me, but not necessarily my favorite though. And when they say, "Oh, I'd never considered a non-alc menu before, but I tried your thing, and now I know there's more interesting things in the space," I'm always looking at non-alcoholic menus now. Could I have a bigger compliment? Absolutely not. So yeah, but and also to the point, I don't necessarily think, for what it's worth, that it's a lack of integrity, well, on behalf of the companies, but I'll tell you, even as a private chef, I can present a menu, but at the end of the day, if people want tater tots, I'm going to make tater tots. You know what I mean? There is an extent to give the people what they want. That does make sense. It's just, I'm doing this for me. I think sometimes doing it for you first creates the crowd to follow you.
And there's place for everybody. There's room for everything.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
then there's the topic of, do people actually want that? Or is that just what they're used to having? So that's what they want. How do we, there's so much more than just the norm, the regular, the expected. And so I love what you're doing because it opens the opportunity and the idea to try something fucking different that might just blow you away and excite you, and then open new doors. And now shit, you're looking at non-alc drink menus that you would have never noticed in the first place. So yeah, it's just like creating more options for people, and that curiosity and that like playfulness that really brings to people. And that's what I appreciate the most. I think that's really cool.
I mean, I really it's so nice to meet. I mean, a really cool thing about going to the To Be Magnetic event and chatting now is I have been making things in the dark for like a decade. You know what I mean? If not longer. And so when people are like, "Oh, this is cool," it's like, "Oh, I didn't know." You know what I mean? Like it's very, "Oh, I thought it was really cool." But yeah, I didn't know it resonated at all. So that's really nice.
Yeah.
My gosh. Yeah, I
And
mean,
the
I can tell
courage it
you, yeah,
takes.
oh,
Sorry, to bring
totally.
it into the light, and you're like, oh fuck, this thing's really cool to me. Is anyone else gonna think this is cool? It's like,
In
it's
Yeah.
fairness, to
vulnerable.
some extent. Oh, I appreciate, I didn't really, to some extent, it's like, I don't know if I really had a choice. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, you gotta do what you have to do. So, but I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot though. I mean, to Mara's point, it's like, you work on something for so long and it's just, oh man, what am I doing? What is this even? I love this shit, but when you put it out there in the world, and not even to get the validation from other people, but there is that sense of, oh man, what's going to happen? The unknown. But yeah, I mean, I totally appreciated it because I've been to a couple events recently that didn't have any mocktails or non-alc anything. And I was just like, damn, that sucks because there's so many options.
like mindset conferences or whatever, not just like, oh, I went to a
Yes.
concert event, like things that are about mindfulness and shit like that. And it's like,
How do you not have something? There's so
It's
many
kind
good
of
things out
nuts.
there. Yeah, totally.
Totally. I'm very lucky that in New York, maybe people are just not saying it to my face because it's my company, but when I go into most restaurants, the bartenders, I say, oh, this is so great. We take breaks, or half the bartenders I meet, I feel like are sober, which is kind of crazy. And so it is exciting that that's rarely a conversation I have to have, but I know that's not the case everywhere, and I also know other salespeople in the non-alcoholic space who don't necessarily feel that way and often feel they're still having to justify themselves. And you really couldn't find a better community to serve than the sober community. I love them. They're just like the easiest, like loveliest people. I'm so grateful to be part of it in any capacity. I guess I identify as sober curious, but I just don't really drink. It's usually where I end up on that.
what does sober curiosity mean? Like, what did that journey look like for you, if you don't mind sharing with us that path of, you're in food and bev and you're like, oh fuck, I can't do this shit anymore. Like you said, I'm washed up, so, and then did you take like a solid break for a long time, or did would that take us through that?
I would say to some extent. So being 20, being 23, starting in restaurants, or 22, and you go out with the first restaurant I was at was a relatively larger restaurant, and there were two other ones associated with it. It's ABC in New York and Union Square. And so at the end of the day, you would go out with like 40 of your close friends every night. And so I think that the social aspect of that for many years, and after that, it was kind of similar. The people you're with all the time, you're going out with as well. And so I would say for a long time, I would say the 5 years after I left restaurants, it was comparatively lonely in a good way. But getting used to not having that crutch and kind of rebuilding was an interesting thing. I would take month breaks and I would feel a lot better. An interesting thing about those month breaks is, although not drinking has changed my life in so many ways for the better, the interesting thing about it is you immediately realize, oh, this isn't the source of all my problems. Like, I still have problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like an interesting revelation for me. So I would take breaks and then I would go back. My partner doesn't same thing. He doesn't really drink. So and we've been together a very long time. So but in a way where he doesn't really relate to necessarily the spirit space, because he could just always take it or leave it. But he was very supportive. Um, I would say I would take longer breaks for a long time, but I would go back. And then in 2023, I just kind of had a big year. We had to move 3 times. There was an illness in the family. Just a lot of things happened, like a lot of housing insecurity. Some jobs fell through. Like the stylist I was working with the most dropped me. And that happens, personality things. But at the end of it, I said, okay, am I the person I thought am I going to be the person I want to be? And the answer was, yeah, you got to step up to the plate. And so at that point I said, I'm going to take a year off from drinking. That was officially, rather than like a month on, a month off. That was November 2023. Getting to the point where I made up my mind. Making up my mind was the hard part. Once I made up my mind, it was very easy. Like the waffling was really the issue. And then as I was rounding up the end of that year, so that was going into last year, the end of last year, I said, first off, Trump was elected. And I said, oh, I cannot be adding any stress to the biology soup. Like, this really, like, I can't I can't go back. I can't, yeah, by the end of that year, it was clear I could not go back, both for political and personal reasons. I felt so much better. I managed stress differently, and it's time to step it up again.
I totally relate. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love how you touched on the topic of you notice when you're taking these month breaks that alcohol isn't necessarily the issue. It amplifies the deeper things that are going on. And we've talked about this a bit because, when you see like highlight reels and it's like, I'm sober now and my life is amazing, like I'm more mindful and I get to the gym and I do all these things. Yes, that can be true. And also, it can also be true that things feel really intense. It can feel lonely. You're trying to totally reorient how you socialize with people, how you connect with people. How do you connect with yourself? What the fuck do you do with your hand when you're standing around a group of people and everyone else has a beer? I mean, there are a gazillion things to take into consideration that aren't just like I said, the highlight reel that we see or the clickbait that we can see. So, yeah, can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what did that look like and feel like for you?
God,
when you notice that
highlight reel? Totally. The one that grinds my gears is when somebody's like, and I lost weight. It's like, I don't ever, there's not a single conversation in which I want to hear about weight loss. I never want to hear about it. Don't bring it up. And so, but back to the topic. Yeah, I think it's just interesting the ways in which we're kind of always unraveling that. Like right now, the big one for me at this moment, it's always interesting that like in some ways I feel like I have a mental health white whale, and the one right now is like, oh, I got to get off social media, man. Like,
Yes.
it's taking up a lot of time, and that, breaks are great, and I do feel better, and then I go back and I'm like, but social media isn't necessarily the problem. It's just finding your way back to center. I think is consistently the thing. Yeah, just developing different skill sets. I also, back to a conversation about the sober community, I'm so impressed by the sober people in my life, of which there are so many, because they are real people with flaws, and they know exactly what their flaws are. Like, they're exactly aware of their blind spots, and they're working on it constantly.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, the awareness. Yeah, and like the willingness to it takes, again, vulnerability to be like, yeah, man, these are my shortcomings. I know it, and I'm trying to work on that, and I really respect when people can do that. And I just want to go back to the weight loss thing because I think it's funny, and the whole like the highlight reel stuff, because I think Renee and I both have posted shit like this, and we still do, because it's like going back to the whole social media stuff. It's like, what's going to engage people? And it's like it's going back to the fucking hash brown or tater tot things, give the people what they want, because it's going to bring them in, versus like, and it's oftentimes there's more depth there. So I know Renee has posted stuff about her weight loss journey, and it's not about how she looks or the weight loss per se. It's about the dedication to actually being able to stick to the things that she's wanted to do, like powerlifting competition or shit she would have never done if she was numbing out, but there's also the other side when it's just all about like the superficial, look how I am now.
Well, it's like the X equals YZ, when there's just like, and you touched upon that too, Mara. It's like the highlight of it. It's like that is the 5-second instant gratification that you see or like an iceberg or whatever. It's the top. There's just like this little tiny thing at the top, and then like all of this other shit at the bottom that you've been working on for years, that you are navigating. And, Lauren, I love too that you touched upon where you are right now is the social media. And that's the whole premise of what we're talking about at Nosedive, is these numbing elements. It's all of these coping mechanisms that can transform and look differently for different people. And how can we shine this light on those things to not necessarily like push it away or never do it again, or because that's just not realistic, but how do we become intentional about it and aware and see, and then like fucking do something about it, just like what you're doing?
Absolutely. And the tricky thing, like you said about the highlight reels, and the fact is that it is a fact. Like those things are happening. So it's hard not to highlight them
Mm-hmm.
when that's part of it. I mean, it's the tricky thing about it's part of the game, but the goal is to exit the game entirely, you know. But to, like it is so much in the phrasing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
My God, I love that analogy though.
I know.
We just all want out anyways.
Well, fuck, I was, you bring up social media and this is, I've seen so many things like posting on social media is going to be like the new ick and stuff like this. And I was contemplating literally today. I was like, because I'm going down to Key West and I'm going to be living there for a little bit. And I was like, I want to make a page to kind of like help people see how you can live in a place that's primarily centered around booze, island life living, and how you can live it differently. And I just want to share my experience. But then I'm like, fuck, like, do I want to be on social media and Instagram, like more? And I was like really juggling with that. And I'm like, I don't know. This is weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard when the message is important, but it is at the cost of one's privacy. You know what I mean? So that
Mm-hmm.
it's a tricky time. It's not a question that other generations have had to answer. And I appreciate you saying it because I do like it's very easy to hear from someone else like that sounds incredible. I would love to see your journey in that way, but it's harder to find that in yourself. It's the joke and yet again the sober community is often like it's okay if you do it, it's not okay if I do it. You know what I mean? So
You're like, oh, I love that for you.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, man. Oh, man. And then you have like a million fucking different platforms and it's like it's just so much. But then also it's been so great in connecting with people I've never met with. Like I've never met you and now we're connected and like they got us, man. They got us.
I know.
totally. I mean, without straying too far from the topic at hand, I'd really like, I think if they crack down on bots, that would be immensely helpful in making it like a real proper third space.
That's such an interesting take too, because like there have been some people who I've met like through social media and like seeing like the back end of things on what they do. It's kind of like the fucking Wizard of Oz. It's like the guy back here doing all this stuff and he's not really all, not to say these people aren't that great, but they're not like, it's not organic. Like a lot of this stuff is like strategy or paid or, paid followers and like stuff like that. And it's just like, whoa, okay. When you find out these things of what's behind the curtain, at least for me, I'm like, okay, I'm actually not doing so bad. You know what I mean? Like the comparison game and all that bullshit. But yeah.
No, total, and it's so hard because there's money riding on that at this point. So these followers, it doesn't, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's real engagement or not. They're to some extent they're buying themselves that so they can have the opportunities in the first place.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Oh, what a conundrum.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's tough world out
Okay.
there.
Well, going back to, your product with Mad Flora, what was the beginning sort of incubator or like brainstorming around like the flavor profile that you wanted, or why did you pick an Amaro? Like what was the thought process that kind of went into that?
So I think that there's kind of like a through line of taste to some extent. If you look back on my life, I'm like, oh, of course, that's exactly what would interest me. Even when I
Mm,
was young, one of my best friends in high school went to Argentina for the summer and was drinking Fernet and Coke all summer with like an older man named Facundo. And I was like, there's nothing more sophisticated on this earth. And then working in restaurants and like drinking Fernets and Cokes and just really being interested in that bitter flavor profile and herbs. So I think most wellness ladies, non-binaries, theys, gays, have like stumbled down the witch path at some point. So like the herbalism thing's very interesting from like a chef and a, just a moon lady, let's say.
yeah.
Like,
I love
so
that.
I think, and in many ways, Amaro is the OG herbalism witch thing because it is a digestion thing. So gentian is meant to help digest. That's what it's for. It's to either open your palate before a meal or to help you digest after. So I think that there's something like very naturally appealing there from a medicinal standpoint. And then the flavors are just interesting to me on top of that. So I think that that's, especially just being sad, seeing other people with spritzes and being like, that's so cute. Why can't I have a cute thing? Like,
Yes.
we deserve cute things. We
We
deserve cute,
do.
well-crafted things. So
Yeah. And you can have it on its own and you can mix it, right? Or do you recommend mixing it to make more of like a Aperol spritz or whatever?
I do. A spritz with tonic like is really, I think, it was designed for a lot of things. I think the tonic helps from a sugar perspective. It is significantly less sweet than most of the things on the market, which is my appeal for me and the draw for a lot of people. But I think the sugar and tonic helps a little bit. It's great with seltzer too, though. I would say that's how most customers drink it, and it's delicious that way. It's really good in a jungle bird. So when I sort of think of recipes that I'm going to compare it to, I think about things with Campari in them in particular. So it works really well with tiki drinks, which is cool. And it works in sours as well. So that's kind of the four categories that I think it whips. It has like a really good heady foam if you're like really heavily into cocktail making, but you don't necessarily need to do that. I'm not an extravagant cocktail person. I want 1, 2, done.
Same.
What else was I going? I have 5 SKUs planned, I would say. There was another point, but I lost it.
No, that's
Yeah.
like very exciting because I'm the same. Like when it comes to, I was more of like a wine champagne drinker, but I loved an Aperol spritz. And so when I tried, Mad Flora at the event, I was like, oh fuck yeah, this shit is good. Adding it to the non-alc bar cart for sure. But I also love the simplicity. I wasn't like a huge cocktail girly, but when you have like 2 things, like the fizz and like the mix, perfect. I'm like super simplistic and but the depth of flavor that it has with all of the herbs and whatnot, it's like very good. Very
wow,
good.
you guys, I'm very curious to try this. I'm over here like, what does this taste like?
I know.
I'll send you a bottle. You'll get me your address and I'll send you bottles. Totally.
Oh my gosh, would love to try it.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to try it. So you'll definitely be getting a bottle. It also goes really well in non-alc champagnes. So champagne cocktail situation or Negroni Spagliato sort of
Hell
situation.
yeah, sister.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh,
Damn
this is
right,
perfect because I'm just like, I'm thinking about, because I'm going to be like facilitating things down in the Keys, some like mocktail stuff, and we'll definitely use this.
Yeah.
There. Like,
We'll
where
chat.
how can people buy this?
You
If
can
they're
buy it on
not
my
in
website.
New York? Okay.
Website's great. We're working, I mean, by we, it's me. You know what I mean? Everyone else is kind of a freelancer who's done their part. So like I'm working on national distribution. It's totally viable, but it's just hard to build a sales base with that. There's a discount code I gave you guys. It would be great. Yeah, I would love for your audience to try it. The website's the way to go right now.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we'll have everything linked in our show notes. And as Lauren mentioned, we're giving a 20% off discount for our listeners, which is so incredible. And it's Nosedive 20, but we'll link everything in the show notes for that because I think this is something, not only just the impact that you're creating in this space and your story, but the shit is actually really good too. So
Cool.
like, yeah, super excited.
And to your point, and I'm really grateful you think so. And I mean, obviously I think so too, but I do know that non-alcoholic spirits are insanely expensive. I know that non-alcoholic spirits are really expensive and it's so hard to try something if you can't, especially with shipping and things like that. So I want people to be able to try it.
We have a couple Nosedives hats, so we'll send you one. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Little swapsies.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like camp friends.
Yeah.
Love that. Gosh. And that's the other thing too, through this entire experience of, we talk about playfulness and curiosity and having fun. And there's this essence of nostalgia and getting back to these things like fucking camp, like summer camp, where you swap phone numbers on a piece of paper and I'll call you or I'll write you or whatever. It's just so wholesome and fun. And it's just, man, this shit is awesome to me. It's just so fun.
Mm.
So yeah, thanks for highlighting that. This is just fun.
So it's amazing how the people you resonate, especially I think this becomes much clearer in sobriety too, or sobriety adjacent, is like the people you resonate with. Like you're going to find your people everywhere.
Mm.
And the people who you don't, that's okay. It doesn't make them bad people. But so it is that fun sort of like recognition of souls on a base level. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's funny that fun and play have come up because I was going to ask you, Lauren, what have you noticed most around your personality in terms of playfulness and maybe just acceptance and confidence, like all of those things kind of intersecting through this journey? How have things shifted for you?
Um, Hugely is the answer. And like I said, it's hard when it's like, and all these things, but it is a quiet source of confidence for me that I could not imagine. It's not something I need to talk about. It's just like in the background, it's like, this is the journey and I know who I am. So starting there with that foundation, uh, getting a hobby is huge. I could not, people need to have more hobbies. So getting back to, I did ceramics in high school. I was like, I need to get back to ceramics. I got back to the hobby. So just making a lot of creative work. Uh, that is a solo hobby, just acknowledging my need for alone time. I try and go in the morning if I'm available. I don't want to see anyone. I don't really want to say hi. I just want to jam out with my book on tape. And then being able to rotate through things and also just having less fucks to give, to be honest. Just if I'm not getting, there's only so much patience I have for a certain conversation if neither of us are enjoying it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Hobbies. That's a huge one because at least, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone, but Renee and I have talked about like, you realize how much more time you have when it's not like, oh, yeah, my free time goes to like checking, getting drinks or going to the next bar, or, whatever. Um, if that's your thing, cool. But you also realize, oh, wow, there's so much time where I could be doing things that are like fun and exciting and creative. Um, and it's interesting because I've heard from quite a few people that they're like, I don't really know what to do because I'm so used to just doing that for so many years, and it's like true. So I guess what would you kind of recommend for people who are in that space of, being curious about this type of journey and path, who might be a little bit afraid to figure out what their hobby might be?
Not to jump on the bandwagon, but I did the artist way this year. Have you done it yet?
What
Mm?
is that?
Oh, see, and then I think it's killer. You got to do it. It is
The
a
artist.
12-week course, the artist's way, um, or the artist, syllables. Anyhow, it is a 12-week self-guided course by a woman named Julia Cameron. I think she wrote it in the 90s. I came through my hobbies on a different way, but man, if you want to build yourself an exciting arsenal of stuff to do, you could not imagine a better tool. So she has two non-negotiables. One of them is morning pages. So it's you write 3 pages first thing in the morning, no matter
I've heard
what,
of
you
that.
brain dump it.
Yes.
Yeah. And that takes longer than you think. Like to this day, it still takes me like 40 minutes to do that. I've kind of dropped it recently to get back to meditating, but I'm sure I'll incorporate them both at some point. So the second thing is the artist date, which is you take yourself on a 2-hour date alone. You can't invite anyone once a week, and it's a non-negotiable. You have to do it for the 12 weeks at minimum. And that could be taking yourself to a movie. It could be reading in a coffee shop. It could be taking yourself bowling. It could be going to a museum, walk in the woods, anything like that. But then there are cool exercises in it that are just kind of exciting at any point in your life. I can't wait to do it again next year, where it's like name 5 jobs that would be interesting to you that you didn't know or that you hadn't considered before. And think on a child level. So like scuba diver, casting director, you know what I mean? Like getting
Yeah.
in that sort of funky space. And then the next week there's a set of prompts, and the next prompt's like, okay, what are 5 other jobs you could do? And then you have to dig in again. Or what are 20 activities that at some point in your life held some appeal for you, even if they don't now? So like maybe at some point you thought, oh, I could be skydiving. That might not fit you now. Write it down. And I think that that's a really great way to kind of get into your groove and rediscover the things that might interest you.
Well,
I love that because I love that it's like a tangible tool and book that people can actually go out and buy it and, whatever, digest it and explore with it. I have heard of this book. Now I'm terrible with titles, but I've had a couple of friends who have talked about The Morning Pages and The Artist Date. And it's just so fun because it really opens it up to your imagination. And there's just so much untapped in there that it's just like kind of sleeping, and then you're like, oh, let's explore. And it's like, whoa, fucking scuba diver. Fuck yeah. Skydive instructor. Let's go. Now we're talking. I'm excited.
And it is, and the prompts are so helpful. Like, I know prompts don't always resonate with everyone, and there are times where I'm like, I don't want to do that. No, they're like really fun, exciting prompts, and you can take them and leave them as you want. And it's really cheap. You know what I mean? It's a very inexpensive way to get in your groove. If you're like worried about money, you're spending less than $30 on the book.
Yeah.
Which is a huge, I'm happy that you mentioned that because I think right now there are so many different, courses and things that you can take, and it's overwhelming to have to research, and then the investment, which it doesn't mean that, like, I think everybody should invest in their self-development in whatever shape and form. But yes, I'm happy that there is something out there that is at a price point that's not going to absolutely that you don't even have to decide or think about. That is, I would say, pretty affordable for everybody. So yeah, we'll definitely make sure to link that too.
Got to do it. I'm excited to proselytize the Artist Way. It's awesome. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, I'm excited for that. And I resonate with that too, because like Mara, you're talking about, there's some people out there that, don't even know, dude, that was me. That was me. I had no idea what I even like to do. So I'm happy that they're just that we're talking about this and giving people ideas, but that there are tools out there that people can utilize to have some self-reflection and set aside the time for themselves.
Totally.
Well, I think to some extent, I think the answer for 6 months of sobriety might actually be do nothing. Like the first 6 months you're not drinking, if that's the answer, is just you lie on the couch every day until you feel like doing something, that's a perfectly acceptable thing. Like you've had a long life and you have a long life ahead of you. Take your time.
We were both going down the same path of kind of being just gentle with yourself as you take on a totally different lifestyle change. Like, yeah, it's okay if you're like, I don't fucking know what to do. What's a hobby? I don't want to do a hobby. I don't want to do these prompts, Yeah, that's okay. That's valid to feel that way, and then, well, maybe you just try it a little bit one day, it's like no big deal.
Right.
And it slowly evolves. But in a world where things can be kind of like instantaneous and just at the snap of our fingers, we're like, we want that instant gratification. At least I know I do. And damn, I'm like, it's not really realistic all the time. So
yeah.
No, especially during COVID, I think there was this moment where it was like you could look around and just think, I think we're much more aware 5 years later that social media is kind of fake to some extent, like we were talking about earlier. But like, it was like, how is everyone getting successful overnight? Like,
yes.
And like, how can I do that? And I think that there's something to be said that like has been completely lost in our culture about a life built on expertise and actual experience. And congratulations to anyone who finds success at any point, but like, you will not have an endless capacity for doing nothing. At some point you're going to want to get up, and it's totally fine to wait until the moment where you want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and too, I think to that point too of like being an expert is the both sides of trying the new thing. You don't have to be an expert at it to enjoy it. I think a lot of, or at least for me, the all or nothing mentality or the higher achiever mentality of like, okay, well, I started this thing that I've never done before, but I'm not good at it. So fuck it. I'm not going to do it. It's like, whoa, wait a second. You've never done it before. It's like learning a new language for the first time. Give yourself the grace and then see if you still want to continue. But then on the flip side too, of just being an expert at something, even if it's in the non-traditional sense, maybe you can do something with that where it could be a full-time thing. Just that having that explorative sort of nature in mind of, just trying things out. Because it can be hard for people, especially right now as an adult,
I think the end goal of anything, unfortunately, not to like have a glib platitude, but it's like at the end of the day, you get to do the work. And like that's a really infuriating thing to hear, but it's all at the end of the day, it's about flow state and getting in it and what you learn at that process. It's not about the end result. And that sting. It's both the joy and the most frustrating part about anything. So
yes.
Yeah. What an interesting ride we're on, y'all.
Yeah. I know. It's fucking wild. Well, as we sort of round out this conversation it sounds like you really have been working at a lot of different things throughout your life. And for our listeners out there who get to that point where they've either been working on something or they're just starting something and they get to that point where they're like, fuck, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Or, I just like, don't know if it's for me, kind of that like on the cusp of maybe quitting. Do you have any like advice or sort of words of wisdom that have kind of gotten you through those kind of rough parts of your story?
I think everyone kind of wants to know, and it is glib and it's kind of like, that's it, but like, it's going to be fine. Come on in, the water's warm. Like, it's great. Like, there's nothing. I am very, to a fault, jump first and the net will appear at this point, because what do you have to lose? So I think just consistently asking yourself, if you really feel an inclination and urge to do something, maybe don't hold that back. There's probably a reason for it. Also, on the other side of the coin, hopefully I'm answering like all sides of the question, but like, I think there's a lot about the word quitting that's very triggering to people. Maybe not quitting alcohol, but just quitting in general, giving up. And I had a friend recently who said to me, oh, you and I, we're just those who like never give up. And I said, to some extent, the best things in my life have come when I gave up on something. Like, you don't have to cling to an idea so hard. Like, you don't know what's on the other side. And just like, if you come around the corner, something might be easy for you in this way. There might be something better and this and that. And so, I think just like not finding stigma about being a quitter is very helpful. Like, it's okay to let go.
That's such a synchronicity, Mara. We were just talking about that. Like, do less.
Right.
Yeah. Almost always the answer. Yeah.
But I'm like, wait, but how do you get
anything done?
How do you get stuff done?
I've said a lot about doing nothing, and I'm like, I get it. Like, I understand. It's much easier to say than to not do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you.
And what did you say before? Did you say glib? What does that mean? Am I that old?
No,
I was wondering the same thing.
I have glib, like sort of nonsense here. Glib.
Is it like
pat?
Plausible. Okay.
It's like something like very neat and tidy, and like just a tiny little phrase that you take. Like, yeah,
learn something new.
Love
every
it.
Day.
I just like the gl sound. It's like
me too.
Glib.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, that's a cool word. I'm definitely gonna use that. That's cool.
Yeah, take it away. It's a 1 cent word because it's tiny, but it's a very useful one.
A little glib here and a little glib there. Sprinkle that shit around.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Lauren. We really appreciate your time again. And just, I'm so excited to share your story and share Mad Flora with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm going to be telling everyone.
Honestly, it's been such a treat, and I hope the best of luck. I wish the world for you both.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. If this episode lit you up, share it with someone you love. We geek out on having combos with people living life boldly, and we would love to hear your story. So email us at info@nosedive-co.com, and don't forget to like, follow, and hang out with us at Nosedive Co on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Until next time, bye.